Is it right that a country like yours, that hasn't signed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Refugee Convention, the Migrant Workers Convention, you're one of only a handful of countries that hasn't signed any of them. Do you think it's right that you should be a member of and heading a key committee of the UN Human Rights Council?
We are there by elections by the member states of the United Nations. We did not impose ourselves. We did not parachute from the sky. We did not use anything that...
You didn't want to be on the UN Human Rights Council?
No. We wanted to be, but we were elected. We have to submit ourselves to the will
But you wanted to be, but you don't sign any of the key documents in the world of human rights.
That's how we submitted ourselves in the elections, and we won the elections in spite of the fact that, in spite of that situation. So it seems that is not as key a consideration as you seem to think it is.
Well, I'm not judging what the elections are. I'm just wondering what your perception is of a country that hasn't signed these documents.
We have submitted ourselves for elections. Everybody knew what we signed and did not sign, and based on that, we were elected.
And when you look at the human rights situation in Saudi Arabia, for example, there are some would say some bizarre rulings. Why is advocating atheism in Saudi Arabia now considered to be a terrorist offense? How do you explain that?
Well, because it is, in Saudi Arabia, we are a unique country. We are the birthplace of Islam. We are the country that hosts the two holiest sites for Muslims in Mecca and Medina. We are the country that is based on Islamic principles and so forth. We are a country that is homogeneous in accepting Islam by the entire population. Any calls that challenge Islamic rule or Islamic ideology is considered subversive in Saudi Arabia, and would be subversive and could lead to chaos.
Well, somebody who says, I don't believe in God and others shouldn't believe in God is the equivalent of Osama bin Laden?
Well, somebody who says that and calls for it publicly is subversive and could possibly be a terrorist, yes. But
merely by disbelieving in God, he could be a terrorist?
Well, if he was disbelieving in God...
He's not a violent person. He's exercising his freedom of conscience.
If he was disbelieving in God and keeping that to himself and conducting himself, nobody would do anything or say anything about him. If he is going out in the public and saying, I don't believe in God, that's subversive. He's inviting others to retaliate against him.
Even if that was subversive, and a lot of people would not agree with that statement, how is that terrorism? Aren't you just emptying that word of all meaning when you say an atheist is a terrorist?
Well, in terms of subversion, disturbing public peace, disturbing the security of the country, all of that, he is inviting, he is provoking others to react in a way that would also be violent and unacceptable.
One last question. Are you okay with the fact that your country is still the only country on earth where women aren't allowed to drive?
It doesn't matter whether I'm okay with it or not. I think women should be allowed to drive. I think this is a matter for society to ultimately decide and
not a matter for the government?
It is a matter for the government, but we have a government that responds to societal concerns and pressures and views. So we are not an arbitrary dictatorship where the government decides whatever it wants.
So Saudi society doesn't want women to drive, is what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying that this is a matter for Saudi society to emerge into. I think that Saudi society is ready for women to drive. I think women should be allowed to drive, but that's my personal opinion, and I think that is going to happen someday soon, I hope.